There comes a moment in life when you begin to sense that the version of yourself you have been presenting to the world is only a fraction of who you are capable of becoming. It is not dramatic, and it does not arrive with sudden noise. It begins quietly, through subtle dissatisfaction and a persistent inner voice that tells you there is more within you. You start questioning old habits, long-held fears, and even the labels you once accepted without resistance. This awakening is not about rejecting your past. It is about recognizing that growth requires expansion. The chosen one is not defined by external recognition, but by internal realization. You begin to understand that comfort has limits, and staying the same is no longer an option. The thoughts you entertain become more intentional. The conversations you engage in become more meaningful. You start observing yourself with honesty rather than judgment. This is the early stage of transformation, where awareness replaces autopilot living. It may feel unfamiliar, even unsettling, because the familiar patterns that once guided you begin to loosen their hold. Yet this discomfort is not a sign of loss. It is evidence of elevation. Identity awakening asks you to take responsibility for who you are becoming. It invites you to step beyond expectations and move toward purpose with quiet confidence. You may notice that certain environments no longer fit you, and certain mindsets no longer satisfy you. That is not coincidence. It is alignment shifting. Even before others see any visible change, something within you has already started rearranging your priorities. You begin to value growth over approval and clarity over confusion. Over time, this internal shift becomes undeniable. You respond differently, you choose differently, you carry yourself differently. And one day, you realize that the person you are becoming is stronger, calmer, and more self-aware than the person you once were. That realization marks the true beginning of transformation. Growth does not develop in ease alone. It is strengthened in moments that test your limits. There will be seasons when responsibilities increase, expectations rise, and obstacles appear without warning. At first, it may feel overwhelming, as though the weight placed on you is unfair. Yet pressure has a purpose. It reveals what is fragile and strengthens what is firm. Instead of asking why challenges are happening, you begin to ask what they are building within you. This shift in perspective changes everything. Resilience is not loud determination. It is quiet persistence. It is choosing to continue when motivation fades. It is maintaining integrity when shortcuts seem tempting. The chosen one learns to endure without losing character. Each difficult moment becomes training rather than punishment. You start noticing that your tolerance for discomfort increases. Situations that once caused panic now require strategy. Delays that once discouraged you now develop patience. You begin to understand that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to stand steady within it. Pressure refines your thinking. It forces you to prioritize, to simplify, and to focus on what truly matters. You discover abilities you did not know you possessed. Confidence grows not from comfort, but from surviving what you once doubted you could handle. Over time, the challenges that shaped you become evidence of your capability. You speak with more certainty because you have endured uncertainty. You move with more stability because you have navigated instability. Even when new pressures arise, you no longer see them as threats. You recognize them as preparation. This is how resilience transforms you. It does not change your circumstances immediately, it changes your response. And in that response, a stronger, steadier version of you begins to emerge. As you continue to grow, you begin to notice that distraction loses its appeal. Activities that once consumed your time start to feel less meaningful, and conversations that once entertained you may now feel empty. This shift is not about becoming distant, it is about becoming focused. Clarity develops when you decide what truly deserves your energy. Instead of reacting to every opportunity, you begin evaluating which paths align with your deeper purpose. Vision acts as a compass. Without it, movement becomes random and progress feels inconsistent. With it, your steps gain direction and intention. You start asking different questions. Not what is easy, but what is necessary. Not what is popular, but what is meaningful. This level of clarity requires honesty. It requires you to acknowledge distractions, excuses, and habits that dilute your potential. The chosen one understands that time is limited and energy is valuable. As your vision sharpens, your decisions simplify. You no longer chase validation because you are guided by conviction. You begin to plan with patience rather than urgency. Long-term growth becomes more important than short-term applause. This clarity influences how you spend your mornings, how you respond to setbacks, and how you define success. You become selective, not out of pride, but out of alignment. Even when others question your direction, you remain steady because you understand your reasoning. Clarity does not eliminate obstacles, but it prevents confusion. It allows you to remain focused when distractions compete for attention. Over time, your consistent alignment with your vision builds confidence. You trust yourself more because your actions match your intentions. And one day, you recognize that the uncertainty that once defined your path has been replaced by steady direction. That is the power of clarity. It transforms scattered effort into purposeful movement and turns potential into progress. As you grow into the person you are meant to become, one of the most noticeable changes will not be external success, but internal stability. Emotional maturity begins when you stop allowing temporary feelings to control permanent decisions. You start observing your reactions instead of justifying them. Where you once responded immediately, you now pause. That pause becomes power. It allows you to choose understanding over impulse and reflection over regret. Emotional maturity does not mean you no longer feel deeply. It means you feel without losing balance. The chosen one learns that not every disagreement requires defense and not every opinion deserves attention. This awareness protects your energy. You begin to recognize triggers without being ruled by them. Instead of reacting with frustration, you respond with clarity. Instead of carrying resentment, you practice release. This does not happen overnight. It develops through experience, through mistakes, and through moments where you realize that peace is more valuable than being right. Emotional maturity also means taking responsibility for your own growth. You stop blaming circumstances and start strengthening character. You communicate more thoughtfully. You listen more carefully. You accept correction without seeing it as defeat. Over time, people notice that you handle pressure differently. Situations that once unsettled you now reveal your composure. That calm presence becomes one of your strongest qualities. It builds trust, it builds respect. Most importantly, it builds self-control. Emotional discipline allows you to protect your focus and maintain direction even when others are reactive. And one day, you will realize that the person who once struggled to manage emotions has become someone who carries them with wisdom. That transformation is quiet but powerful. It marks a deeper level of growth, where strength is measured not by loud reactions but by steady responses. As you continue evolving, there will be moments when your growth creates distance between you and what once felt familiar. Not everyone will understand your new standards, your discipline, or your decisions. Some may question your direction. Others may misunderstand your silence. This is where courage becomes essential. Courage is not dramatic rebellion. It is steady commitment to what you know is right for your development. It means choosing alignment over approval. The chosen one learns that blending in may feel comfortable, but it often limits potential. Standing apart requires confidence in your values, especially when external validation is absent. You begin to accept that growth sometimes involves outgrowing. Certain habits, environments, and even relationships may no longer support your vision. Letting go is not arrogance, it is clarity in action. Courage also means protecting your boundaries without hostility. You speak respectfully, but you remain firm. You listen openly, but you do not compromise your integrity. Over time, this strength reshapes your identity. You become less concerned with fitting expectations and more focused on fulfilling purpose. There may be seasons of solitude where your circle becomes smaller and your path feels quieter. Yet that quietness builds depth. It strengthens self-trust. It teaches you to rely on conviction rather than applause. Eventually, others may recognize the consistency in your character. They may see the stability that came from your decision to remain authentic. But even if recognition never arrives, the transformation within you is undeniable. Courage to stand apart refines your leadership, sharpens your voice, and anchors your direction. It allows you to walk confidently, even when the road is unfamiliar. And one day, you will realize that the moments you felt most alone were the moments you were becoming most aligned with who you are meant to be. Growth does not rely on inspiration alone. It is sustained by consistent effort. There will be days when motivation feels strong, but there will also be days when it fades completely. Discipline is what carries you forward when emotion is unreliable. It is the decision to act according to purpose rather than mood. The chosen one understands that small actions repeated daily create powerful results over time. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, you begin working with what you have. You establish routines that protect your focus. You manage your time intentionally. You reduce distractions that weaken your momentum. Discipline may feel restrictive in the beginning because it challenges comfort. However, it gradually creates freedom. When your habits align with your goals, progress becomes natural rather than forced. You start finishing what you begin. You follow through on commitments even when no one is watching. That private integrity strengthens self-respect. Each completed task reinforces belief in your ability. Over time, consistency builds confidence. You no longer depend on external pressure to stay committed because your standards become internal. Discipline also sharpens your priorities. You learn to say no to what interrupts your direction. You understand that temporary sacrifice often produces long-term stability. This mindset changes how you approach challenges. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond strategically. Instead of procrastinating, you take structured steps forward. The transformation may not appear dramatic from the outside, but internally it is profound. You begin to trust your process. You measure growth not by immediate results but by steady improvement. And one day, you will notice that the version of you who once struggled with inconsistency has become someone reliable, focused, and self-directed. That shift is not accidental. It is the outcome of disciplined action practiced daily until it becomes part of who you are. As you continue becoming who you are meant to be, one of the most significant shifts will happen quietly within you. Inner peace is not the absence of responsibility or challenge. It is the presence of stability, regardless of circumstances. Earlier in your journey, you may have depended on external approval, quick results, or constant reassurance to feel secure. Over time, that dependence begins to fade. You start grounding your confidence in your values rather than in opinions. Situations that once created anxiety now invite reflection. You pause before reacting. You choose understanding before assumption. Inner peace develops when you accept that not everything is within your control, yet your response always is. The chosen one learns that comparison steals focus and impatience steals clarity. When you release the need to compete with timelines or expectations that do not belong to you, calm strength replaces tension. This peace does not make you passive, it makes you steady. You pursue your goals without desperation. You correct mistakes without self-condemnation. You allow yourself to grow without constant pressure to prove yourself. Even in moments of uncertainty, you carry a quiet assurance that you are progressing. Others may notice that you are less reactive and more composed. They may see a new balance in how you speak and decide. That composure is built through reflection, discipline, and trust in your development. Inner peace also protects your energy. You stop engaging in unnecessary conflict. You stop explaining yourself repeatedly to those committed to misunderstanding you. Instead, you focus on what aligns with your direction. Over time, this calm foundation strengthens every other quality you are building. Clarity becomes sharper, courage becomes steadier, discipline becomes sustainable, and one day you realize that peace is no longer something you chase after success. It has become the environment from which you operate. That realization marks a deep level of transformation, where strength and serenity exist together within you. After walking through awakening, pressure, clarity, maturity, courage, discipline, and inner peace, there comes a moment when the change within you is no longer subtle. It may not happen in a single dramatic event, but gradually you begin to notice that your reactions, decisions, and standards are different from before. The habits that once delayed your progress have weakened. The doubts that once controlled your thinking have softened. You handle opportunities with confidence rather than hesitation. This transformation is not about becoming someone entirely new. It is about fully stepping into who you were capable of being all along. The chosen one understands that growth is cumulative. Every lesson learned, every mistake corrected, and every boundary set has contributed to this evolution. When you look back, you may feel surprised at how much you have matured. Situations that once intimidated you now seem manageable. Conversations that once silenced you now invite your voice. Your presence carries more weight because it is grounded in experience. Others may comment that you seem different, more focused, more composed, more certain. What they see externally reflects what has been developing internally for a long time. Transformation also brings higher standards. You no longer tolerate what contradicts your values. You no longer settle for comfort that limits growth. This does not make you distant, it makes you aligned. You begin to trust yourself deeply. Decisions are made with conviction rather than fear. Even when uncertainty appears, it does not shake your foundation. You know how far you have come, and one day you will pause and realize that the person standing in the mirror carries strength, clarity, and stability that once felt out of reach. That realization will not fill you with pride alone, but with gratitude for the journey. Undeniable transformation is the quiet proof that consistent growth reshapes identity. Even you may look at your current self and recognize that you would not have believed this level of confidence was possible before. As you fully step into your transformation, you begin to realize that your growth was never meant to benefit you alone. Leadership does not always mean standing on a stage or holding a title. It often begins in quiet influence, the way you respond to pressure, the way you maintain discipline, and the way you protect your peace becomes an example to others. People observe consistency before they listen to advice. When your character becomes steady, your presence becomes guidance. The chosen one understands that leadership starts with responsibility. You hold yourself accountable before expecting anything from others. You correct your own mistakes openly. You model the standards you speak about. This authenticity builds trust. Purposeful leadership also requires humility. You recognize that growth is ongoing, and you remain teachable even as you guide. Instead of seeking attention, you focus on impact. You listen carefully. You speak thoughtfully. You encourage without exaggeration. Over time, others may seek your perspective because they sense balance in you. Your journey through difficulty gives weight to your words. You lead not by force, but by example. Purpose gives direction to your influence. You are no longer motivated only by personal achievement, but by meaningful contribution. Whether in family, work, or community, your actions begin to uplift standards. You become more aware of how your choices affect others. This awareness strengthens integrity. Even when unseen, you act consistently. Purposeful leadership also means protecting unity without compromising truth. You address conflict calmly. You promote solutions instead of division. This steadiness becomes your signature, and one day you may look around and notice that your growth has created space for others to grow as well. That is the final stage of becoming. You are no longer just transforming yourself. You are inspiring transformation around you.